and he's going to house it.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Golf course.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your NASCAR betting and DFS home. That is Brian Twining. I am Kyle Robert, and we are going to continue the NASCAR conversation. For those of you that don't normally check out the NASCAR betting preview show, Twitter Spaces, and now first week of a YouTube show, it's a must listen for anybody who bets NASCAR with any sort of consistency. Incredible minds, really, really smart people talking about things they bet. And Brian and I got to join for some reason, so we were there, and it was really fun. If you did hear us there and you're checking out our show for the first time, welcome. We really appreciate it. If you are enjoying what you're listening to, please consider subscribing. Turn on the bell notification. That way you know when a new episode goes live. And then, you can see the socials at the top if you want to give us a follow on Twitter or over on Instagram. But Brian Twining, we've had a day. Some of us got to go golfing while others of us were stuck in the office. But talked for like an hour and a half with a bunch of really smart minds, and now we're going to keep that NASCAR conversation going.
Yeah, it's funny. We've mentioned this numerous times on the show, but I'm at a point now in my NASCAR fanhood where I could probably talk about the sport in season of the NASCAR season all day, every day. In my sleep, I dream about my bets or how our race is going to go now. I try to talk to my wife in NASCAR terms and, just discuss stuff on the race. And of course I just get the rolled eyes look, but yeah, no, as far as this upcoming week, I'm pretty excited for the race. If you did listen to the show, there's a few people that are excited for the board, but it's an interesting pre-flop market to kind of assess. And I think more so on the outright spot, and before we dive into more friggin' uncertainty, I think we should talk about another race that had a ton of uncertainty, and that's the Enjoy 300.
If you insist, it was our worst show, our worst betting week of the season by a mile and a half. We hit a combined one bet. There was a lot of confidence and excitement and potential. It was a frustrating race across the board. As someone who had a William Byron outright, he looked like the dominant car, got to the lead, and then went in for a pit, came out, and his car was completely different and sank like a rock. People's brake rotors were just breaking off in the middle of the race because they were getting hot in the corners and then cold in the backstretch and then hot again. And so Tyler Reddick, out the paint. Chris Bell was, and we talked a little bit about this with Derek on Twitter, but almost got the result. Probably the right thing happened, but like he ends up one more spot in front of Harvick.
Yep.
I hit the Chris Bell top 10. I'm feeling a lot better. I also I was doing some live betting during this race and just doubling and tripling down on the guys that I shouldn't be betting. I texted you. I found a Kyle Busch 12-1. Didn't fire on that, of course, because that would have cashed me some money. So, and then just an overall. Let's throw this up here. Overall frustrating race. I think and maybe more for DFS when we hop over there, but Carson Hocevar looked legit and unfortunately didn't get to finish the race.
The thing though, like we mentioned this a lot on here, like obviously we're giving out picks that we're betting more than likely on an offshore just because we actually don't have access to these damn books because we live in California. I was actually in Vegas, so I was hammering all of these things this last weekend. And one of my favorite bets of the weekend was the Hocevar top 10. And, I felt great about it, even though he was running, mid-teens. He showed the speed in order to move up the field, which there wasn't a cars that were able to do that. And, same scenario that happened with Tyler Reddick with my top 10 there. Like, obviously, It could have went another way where he didn't crack the top 10, but both of those guys were trending in that direction. Reddick was a top 5 car most of the day.
Yeah.
That's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. NASCAR is unlike any other sport that you're betting on. I mean, who the hell would have guessed that friggin' brake rotors were going to be exploding during a race?
You could have a perfect car and all of a sudden your brake rotor is shattering on the track, and then you're Martin Truex and your brake rotor isn't shattering, but now all of a sudden you got brake rotors from another car up underneath your car, and that's messing up your day. So it was just, because Truex looked good at points, like that top 5 felt really good. You did hit Blaney over Logano or no, you hit Truex for top 5.
Yeah, I hit the Truex top 5.
So
the Blaney over Logano bet, another one of these bets that I had wagered on, just like the Truex over Logano.
Yeah.
97% of the race, that was the correct side. And then just on the last lap or the last few laps, it just turned on its head.
Yeah. So overall, not the race we wanted. Put us into a little bit of a hole that we were out digging ourselves out of after a few hot weeks. So let's see if we can get back to to our winning ways. Over on DraftKings, bunch of the same. Chris Bell was fine. Ryan Blaney was awesome, as you mentioned. Started second, had 83 laps led, looked really good all day. Chastain was frustrating. Bubba was even more frustrating.
He was good though. That's the thing. He was fine. He was running near the top 10. He probably wouldn't have gotten the type of points you would have wanted to see out of him, but he would have had a perfectly good finish had it not been for the brake rotor.
And of course, Kevin Harvick sinks and does just enough to crush my bets, but also not well enough to be good for DraftKings. So overall, craptastic week. We do have a race this week, as we talked about on the NASCAR betting show. We are in Sonoma, about 2 hours from me, about 8 or 10 hours from you. But
I did think about jumping on a flight and calling you, just showing up and being like, "Yo, let's go."
I'm not opposed to it. We do have a break next week, so we'll have to figure out what the game plan is. We probably won't record, but maybe we can find a special guest to kind of fill in the gap. So Brian and I will work behind the scenes on that. That being said, let's dive into this week's odds because it is interesting, and a lot of good points were made, and just overall kind of thoughts about how to figure out this week. Obviously, Coda is really interesting, but there is especially if you look at who was good in 2022 at Coda and who was good at Sonoma, it didn't really have a lot of crossover, but it really felt like if you're in the front, it was hard for people to pass. So we'll see. Obviously, no stage breaks. We'll see how many cautions we actually get. But I think the books are doing a few things to kind of offset the potential dangers and pitfalls for their side. So we have Tyler Reddick, we have Kyle Larson, and we have Chase Elliott somewhere between 4.5 and 5 to 1. Obviously, qualifying, if any of them get on the pole, they're automatically going to flip the other two and be just a little bit shorter. It's really, really hard to bet these guys. At the same time, it makes a lot of sense to bet these guys, although I do have a point from Jordan McAbee Fantasy Racing Online. Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, and Tyler Reddick are consensus co-favorites to win at Sonoma in most books. They have combined for 3 top 5 finishes at this track in 16 combined starts. So just a little nugget to stash away when you're thinking about the top of the board.
So, I totally get that, but I forget. I believe the guy's name was Reed. Gave us some fantastic tidbits on the betting preview show, and he was talking about how at Sonoma last year, passing was basically non-existent. So if you didn't have track position coming to the end, you were basically effed in regards to where you were going to finish. And that's probably been the same at most road courses, especially like a Sonoma or Coda the last couple of years. And then I think too, it's important to note, Sonoma was previously a stage caution race. And last season we only saw 4 total cautions, with 2 of them coming outside of the stage breaks. And that's the only time during the race that guys can try to flip the script and jump on a different strategy. And, if you weren't planning for that and you're caught on the wrong strategy, you're just screwed no matter how fast your car is. And I think that's more the reason why some of these guys don't finish where they do. And oftentimes when you're running up front, you are the gunned, you're not the gunner. And so guys are aiming for you. They're racing you hard, potentially spinning you out. All that kind of nonsense happens. So, I don't mind seeing these guys at the top of the board. I do think it's interesting because if any of these three guys jumps on the pole, I don't think they get any shorter than 3.5 to 1. And which, you're only losing two betting points there. I would just rather bet that knowing they're on pole than hit this 5 to 1 number.
The other thing you could do is Kyle Larson has been really good at getting on the pole. 3 of the last 5 he's been on the pole. So that could be another way to look at it too. Bet him to win the pole. He wins the pole. You take that bet and roll it over to him to win the race. That could be a way to attack it. Maybe your book lets you parlay those things. I don't know, but could be interesting. So it's really interesting. I think you really need to make a decision. Are you betting one or two of these guys at the top, or are you going to make a few other bets, hope qualifying goes in your favor, and have a chance to cash ticket? Because last year you cashed Daniel Suarez at 30 something to 1, and obviously Chris Buescher was up there. There was a few names with longer odds that could find a way to get there. So interesting week to attack the board. The next range is really interesting to me, and I've made a couple bets here, and then I'm just trying to figure out how I want to officially attack it. But Kyle Busch, 8.5, 9 is the best number at DraftKings. Obviously won last week, but he's in the car that Reddick was dominant at last year. He's also, a road course guy himself, so lots to like there. My guy, William Byron, you can get 10 to 1 at Caesars, and that is officially on the card.
That's a great number.
Another guy that could easily be on the pole. We've seen his dominance all year. He gets on the pole. He's going to, and the other thing that they said on the show that I thought was interesting was how important pit stops are going to be. And the one guy who's had the best pit crew all year is William Byron. They've been consistently the fastest. And if they didn't have that terrible stop last week, and maybe he is cashing that ticket for me. So
yeah,
makes a lot of sense. Ross Chastain is the next guy in that 9 to 12 range. And I think makes a lot of sense. I love these three guys, and I know it feels like they might go a little overlooked just because either people are going to hammer the top of the board, or they're going to dive down and look for those values, but prior to qualifying. So I'm wondering how much attention these guys are getting, but I think they all are worthy of your attention.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely with you on William Byron. We've talked about this ad nauseum the past couple of weeks. Like he's a fantastic pre-practice and qualifying wager, especially when you're getting him outside of the favorite range. No matter what type of track he's on, he's been probably the best car. Kyle Busch, I mean, he looked great last week, but I don't know how much of that was actually track position as opposed to just overall speed, because it seemed anybody who was in the lead on fresh tires at WWT Raceway was able to run away with it or maintain a 1 second lead. And it was just impossible for anybody behind them to catch them. So, I mean, I don't want to take too much away from what the 8 showed last weekend. He has been good at road courses. I think the numbers are a little more bet down to what we've seen this year, or actually what we saw last week, not what we've seen as a whole. So I'm a little skeptical of that. And then the Watermelon Man, I'm kudos to you for jumping back on the train and having a little more faith in him. I am just so worried that he's lost that edge, which made him one of the top threats every week, just not giving an F about people's feelings essentially, and just saying, I'm going to move you if I need to move up a spot here, no matter where we are on the track. And if he's lost that, he's a mid-tier driver, in my opinion.
I agree. It is a little terrifying to be Team Ross Chastain, and we'll get into some thoughts there. But yeah, he needs to be a little more his old self, and he's worrying too much about what Hamlin's saying and some of the other drivers. He moves people out of the way, and Brad K has never had a problem doing it, and honestly, Denny's never had a problem when he's on the giving end, not the receiving end. So.
I think he has to find victory lane more though. Like that's
Yeah.
the major issues.
For a guy that's priced the way he is, he needs to be in victory lane more often. And obviously we can talk about it. And we did this same song and dance with Brian Blaney, who went 50 something races before he won again. So
The
it's
difference
a hard
between
sport
the
to
two,
win.
the difference between the two though is like Blaney is like a silent assassin. He, even though he wasn't winning races, he was still running,
Mhm.
7th, 6th. Like he was always there, just quietly.
The next range I think is where you get some head scratching numbers, but probably warranted. AJ Allmendinger, anywhere from 14 to 16. Last year's winner, Daniel Suarez, another Trackhouse guy, between 13 and 16. Austin Cindric, will like he's always like 50 to 1. All of a sudden he's 16 to 1 this week.
He's great on road
18
courses
to 1.
though.
He's great. I think it's very underlooked or overlooked. There we go.
Yeah,
How
it's
good he is.
his road course like skill set is
Mhm.
vastly overlooked. He is one of the best road course racers we have in the Cup Series.
Yeah. And then Chris Buescher. The one thing that they also mentioned on the I forget, I want to say it was Rory Picks, talking about how veterans typically do better. People that have driven this course a few times kind of understand like when to brake, when to shift, like all that stuff.
I think
It
that was Mark Harris.
was it Mark Harris? Okay.
Yeah.
But like just being understanding the track, knowing when to shift. A few of these guys are going to run double duty this weekend, which I think is good just to get reps on the track. But Cindric is somebody that feels a little uncomfortable to bet, but was one of the picks on the show, and I think makes a ton of sense. And then Chris, obviously,
and before we move on, I will just firstly apologize. My brain and memory bank is filled up with other stuff. I am terrible with names, so
okay, yeah, I don't know. You go watch the show. There was lots of good information, and
yes,
it was either Rory or Mark. I forget. I want to say Rory, but
or full tank Phil. I can't remember.
We talked for an hour and a half. We rolled right into this. Brian and I also had stuff going on during the day, so keeping everything in all our ducks in a row has been a little bit of a challenge, but we'll get there. Chris Buescher also makes a lot of sense at 19, 20 to 1. Obviously not comfortable used to seeing him here, but was great here last year, has shown ability, and RFK has just been a better team. So don't fault anybody. If you are ranking this range with these 4 drivers, Brian, go ahead and rank them in terms of how likely you are to place an outright on them.
Oh man, on an outright?
Like if you have to bet an outright, like, so you want me to go first? Because I can
Honestly, no. I'm okay. So you'll see him later on my card, but I think on an outright, I would much rather go with Daniel Suarez just for consistency purposes at other tracks. Just kind of that that confidence level coming into this weekend, riding a high or just being good, regardless of like finishing results, because he's had a great car.
Yeah.
Among this group, I think.
Yeah, I like that. I think I might go Cindric over Suarez, but those two are very close. Dinger, I'm a little interested in. Colleagues hasn't been quite as good, but he does have a full-time ride. So in previous years, we've seen him really push because he's just trying to get the win. It doesn't matter what he gets for points. So maybe he's a little more cautious this year. Maybe that ends up putting him in second or third if he's running near the front. And then probably Buescher would be my order. So Cindric, Suarez, Dinger, and Buescher, but they all make sense. And then we get back into some familiar names. We got Chris Bell, 2022, 25. Kind of interesting. Kevin Harvick opened up, closer to 40. Obviously got bet down 20, 25, 30 range. Alex Bowman right there. And then And then we get into, I mean, I guess there's still a few, but like Truex is somebody that we all will obviously want to just hit on, but like Caesars has him at 18, but then he's 30 or 40 everywhere else. So obviously, if you like a Marty party this week, go get you the best of the number. But um, I guess, yeah, I mean, then we have Blaney, then we have McDowell. Like, there's a lot of guys where the books are just throwing their hands up, being like, I don't get it. So from your perspective with this, like, I mean, you could pick, any of these guys, I would say from Denny all the way up to Bell. Like, who's jumping out to you as a most compelling option?
Well, I'll start off by saying I don't have any outrights shorter than this number right now, just because I'm just finding it difficult at handicapping before we see these guys practice and qualifying, because I think qualifying position is going to be really crucial. That being said, and in the response of somebody complaining I didn't have a new hat last week, as you could see, I'm wearing a Napa Racing breast cancer awareness hat, but it's not for the number 9 car. It's for the 56 of Martin Truex Jr. back in the day. I love his number. I know he opened a little bit longer. I believe he opened at like 40. As you can still see that at Bet 365, but we don't reference that. So I mean, the 33-1 a points bet, or for our purposes, you get that Bet Rivers or Barstool. I think is a great long shot bet. He leads all active drivers in wins here. He's led a ton of laps. I think he's like the active leader in laps led at Sonoma. Prior to last season's absolute dumpster fire that was Toyota on road courses. He had top 5 runs in 4 of the previous 5 at this track, and if he would have been a top 10, close to a top 5 car at COTA earlier this year, which I might be putting too much stock in that race, but I do think that not having the stage brake cautions is important to kind of look back at that and how these guys use strategy wise. He was going to be a top 5 car before all the damn overtime starts did there. And then just playing into that fact that he is one of the veterans who knows how to navigate a race without stage brake cautions, I think is crucial from that perspective. So getting in on this number 33-1, if he shows any speed at practice and qualifying, this is dropping out into the 20 inside that 20-1 number.
Yep, I'm with you on Marty. I'm ready to party. This used to be a guy 2 years ago that was up with Chase and up with Larson in the single digits. Obviously, it's been a little bit of a struggle switching to the new car, but he's clearly found some speed. He's clearly found some comfort. He got a win. Like, there's a lot to like about the way Truex is trending. I definitely think he'll be a factor. I'm with you on the outright. I will probably find a way to get a little more exposure in case he's top 5 or 6 or 7 instead of at the front. If he has a good day and he doesn't win, I still want to benefit from being excited about him. So makes sense. The guy right above him, Alex Bowman. Right now I'm more into the, we'll talk finishing position here in a little bit, but he is somebody that's gaining a lot of attention. Obviously, back-to-back top 5s at COTA, strong at Sonoma. This is 3rd full race since his injury, so it's good to see him back and kind of getting comfortable in the car again. So I'm excited about that. It is a little short, but he's another guy that if you bet him at 25, 28, he qualifies well, like the Hendrick guys typically do. All of a sudden that number is 17 or 15, and you're feeling great about having it. The other guy that was brought up that was really interesting was Ryan Blaney. Obviously been incredibly fast, got his win, been really good, but he's been a little under the radar in terms of his road course abilities. Getting him as long as 35 over at DraftKings, I think, is a good way to do it. So, if you want to not get super heavily invested, but have a few outrights that are more of a lottery ticket type situation, Bowman, Truex, Ryan Blaney all make sense. And I can't believe I'm saying it, but Michael McDowell honestly isn't that crazy either. I know it's Michael McDowell and you don't really want to do that, but 3rd at Sonoma in 2022. Top 15 finishes at COTA. He had the 8th best driver rating this year at COTA. And he had a top 10 at Road America. So all of that is to say the more likelihood is top 10 bet. Maybe you find some matchups, maybe you find some opportunities there. But if you want to get a little reckless, a little loose, have a little fun, a little 45-1 at DraftKings, I would not fault anybody who does that.
Yeah, I wouldn't fault anybody to get there. I just think from this range, like especially you got to find people that have shown speed elsewhere, running near the front. And I think that's why Truex makes a lot of sense. And then, like you said, the Blaney number, getting 35-1. I believe on the show we were referencing he had opened at like 40 or 45. Like that's ridiculous on a guy who has been one of the fastest cars on track over the last few weeks, if not one of the best. I mean, running top 3 in pretty much every single one of the last 3 to 4 races. So Blaney is another guy I have on my car just for a quarter unit, just for the hell of it. Like I'm never abashed about backing my guy, Ryan Blaney there.
And then for me, it really I think that's the end of where I'd even consider an outright.
Yeah.
And those guys are probably pushing it a little bit. I don't like if you want to throw a few shekels on each of those guys and have some fun, I totally get it. But I think the smart money is to stay up near the top of the board, or, like you said, take a few shots on a Blaney or a Truex you think really has speed and can qualify in that, first couple of rows.
Yeah, and I do think later in the week, both of us, I know me for sure, I'll definitely have somebody closer to the top of the board after.
Yeah.
I
have Byron at 10-1, mostly because he's 8 or 8.5, and I think he can qualify really well. Kyle Busch is really compelling. I did grab, I think, a 9 or 10 earlier. I that 9-1 is pretty interesting, but I also don't want to fill up my outright card here on a Wednesday evening. So don't. And then Chastain, I think, is really interesting too. I like this range, and then then scrolling way down and getting some of these guys. And that means jumping over a Cindric or a Suarez, who are a little bit uncomfortable at their prices, but present a compelling case. So there's a lot to get into.
We've heard Chris Wormy talk about this all the time. When you look at a Suarez or a Cindric, even if they unload extremely fast and they're great in practice and qualifying, they're likely not going to be posted inside that 10-1 number, fall any shorter than 9-1. And now you have a really good sense that they have legit contending cars under them and they're going to look great. And I would much rather hit them at that point than
you might be betting them at 12 or 15, but you feel a lot better about where they're at and their potential. And I think that's a great point as well. Is the goal with this betting outrights this early is to get ahead of the market. If you think someone's going to move, you think steam's coming in, you think they're going to qualify really well, that number is going to be gone, jumping in is the way to do it. If you don't think it's really going to matter that much, or maybe a little bit, but the information you gain is so much more valuable than the way the number is going to move. Patience is a virtue for a reason. Let's look at a few different things. We'll start with the top 10 market. We'll actually, should we just go over? No, so I have Caesars open, and then I also have Barstool, which actually I really like. Haven't messed around with it, mostly because we don't have access to actually bet at it, but their website is just kind of really set up nicely. So let's look at what they have, because they have some good numbers. So obviously with the big guys, you're going to have to lay a heavy price. You're not going to want to lay minus 265, minus 275. Let me see if I can make this a little bigger. There we go. How's that? That looks better. But there is some opportunity. As we mentioned, Austin Cindric, really, really strong. Minus 134. It's a little bit of a heavy price, but I think something that makes sense. Ross Chastain also makes a ton of sense at minus 134. Daniel Suarez at minus 121. It might be a good week just to hammer the top 10 market. Get a few guys you like, Martin Truex at plus 105, Christopher Bell at plus 100, Bowman at plus 100. There's a lot to like there. So rather than just hammering the outright market, although those are fun and they have the lottery feel, getting in on some of these guys makes a lot of sense. So Brian, I guess for you, of the kind of top 10-ish guys we're looking at right now, who's jumping out to you?
Well, I mean, obviously, I got a long shot dart throw on Martin Truex Jr. and both Ryan Blaney. I like both of those. I just don't know, they're going to be small plays right now. I'm not getting overzealous on these type of numbers.
Come on, Brian.
You know,
That's the fun part. We got to throw shit at the wall and see what sticks.
yeah, I do think though that again, Kyle and I do not talk about our bets prior to recording, and
don't.
one of my favorite coming into this week was Alex Bowman, which is already down to even money when it was plus 110 earlier in the day. Bowman top 10 here, I think makes way too much sense. He looked incredible at Coda. He maintained the top 5 running position pretty much all day there. He's been okay at Sonoma, top 10s in 2 of the previous 4 finishes, but the other 2 were 14th and 16th, so he's not that far off from cracking the top 10. He has top 10s in 7 of the previous 15 road courses he's run, so it's close to a 50-50 shot here. You're getting plus money on that. Yeah. He's driving for Hendrick. Kyle mentioned this on the betting preview show. It's his 3rd race back off of the injury, which I think is extremely important to note that he's going to be way more comfortable in the car this week, maybe a little bit less soreness. So I think, navigating the road course of Sonoma will be a little bit easier than what he's had to experience the last couple of weeks. So I like him pre-flop. I think if Hendrick shows any kind of speed, he's going to be one of the ones that benefits the most and sees his number dropping the most substantially.
Yeah, my betting card is already way too aggressive, and I'm but I just there's numbers that I can't talk about these guys as excited as I am, as confident as I am. It's relative. It's all in NASCAR. The wheels could fall off. You never know. But there's just a bunch of guys with numbers that make sense. Guys that I expect to run really well. And obviously, I'm not going to hit all of them, but if I can hit a good majority, I'll have a nice week and everything will work out. So, Martin Truex plus 105. Welcome to the betting card. Ryan Blaney plus 130. Welcome to the betting card. And Alex Bowman plus 100. I gave out 110. It's already moved. So that's interesting. Nice to see a lot of people on the same page. The 2 that I wanted.
Truex is plus 120 at Caesars. So.
Oh, okay. See, even better. So that shows you people that even when you think you're getting a decent number, always shop it. Find the best of the number. There's 2 guys that we haven't talked about. The first guy that I want to hit on, Michael McDowell, 3rd last year, 12th and 13th at Coda the last 2 years, top 10 at Road America in 2022. I'm getting plus 120 at Caesars. Always shop it, of course. But I think he is a guy that makes sense as a top 10 consideration. And the longer shot that I'm actually jumping on is Bubba Wallace. And you can actually get plus 325 over at Barstool. Not traditionally a road course guy, but I think he has made tremendous strides as a driver. I think he's in a fast car. Obviously, you'll want to see him unload well and perform well in practice and qualifying. But plus 325 is a number that if he qualifies anywhere in the top 10-ish range, goes away. Maybe you're getting 2-1. And if you want to wait for that just to see, I completely understand. But when I saw that number, I said, this seems a little long for the driver he's been this season, the guy that was top 5. And I'm going to take a gamble on him top 10ing at a road course and kind of, I don't think he's going to win, but could he be 14th and all of a sudden he gets 9th at the end of the day? I think he could absolutely do that.
Yeah, and I hadn't even seen this number until Kyle pointed it out to me. So I mean, clearly I'm a big Bubba Wallace fan. I'm going to add this only small unit play here, but
yeah,
Bubba, he's a different driver this year, and yes, Coda, he absolutely dive bombed and destroyed Kyle Larson's day there.
Yeah.
But he did qualify 11th for that race, which was his best qualifying effort since the Daytona road course way back in February 21st of 2021. And it's his second best start ever at a road course at Coda this season, which I think was just another sign that he's evolved as a driver. He's gotten better at every track type. So you're getting 3 1/4 to 1 on a guy who's been a top 10 car basically everywhere we've gone over the last month plus. Even last week when he was, not necessarily in the top 10. He was running right there, had a great shot to crack it before his rotor absolutely exploded. So, yeah, I love this spot. And like you said, if all of the Toyotas unload fast, like we've seen most manufacturers kind of go in line with each other, I think all their numbers shrink. And then for me, I think it's really telling. Like if Ty Gibbs is posted at plus 175, Bubba is better, in my opinion, than Ty Gibbs.
Yeah, and I think like we talked about, experience on the track is important. A lot of these Xfinity guys haven't really ran the track, so I think getting the reps on the track is really, really important. So I think it's just an interesting number, and one considering what Keselowski and Briscoe and Logano and like some of these guys are posted at, like I just getting more than double it doesn't make sense. So I am going to ride the lightning there. Top 5 market, Mr. Kyle Larson, minus 110. You have some really good nuggets on him. So why don't you tell the fine folks about the Kyle Larson experience this week?
Yeah, so I'm doing this again. Look, I got burnt the last time I did this because he wrecked out. But again, he's only completed 8 races so far this year where he's done every single one of the laps in that race. In 6 of them, he's finished top 5. The other 2, one was at Coda, where he got taken out by Bubba Wallace in the first stage at some point, and he still wound up finishing 15th through all of the crap he dealt with on that day. And then the other was Darlington, where he still led 29 laps, but because of some late cautions and just mumbo jumbo that happens during the race, he got stuck in the middle of the pack and finished outside the top 20. This guy is a top 5 car at every track that he races at, to where he finishes the race. We saw it last week where he looked like absolute dog crap early, and I was sitting there laughing my way to the bank with a Kyle Larson finishing position over 6.5, only to realize that him and Cliff Daniels are the best duo in the sport in making in-race adjustments. And somehow he found his way up on the front row late in the race, battling for a win yet again. If this guy can keep on track, he is finishing top 5. And without getting out of here talking about Kyle Larson, he's qualified on pole in 5 consecutive Sonoma races. And if he does that again, even qualifies on the front row, this is easily shot down 1-2, maybe minus 240, something of that nature, knowing that passing is hard here and it's going to be all about track position.
Yeah, soliloquy. Well done. I'm going to join you on that. I was looking at potentially targeting the top 3 instead of top 5, but you only get like plus 130, 140, and it's like I'd rather have
losing 2 spots.
Yeah, I'd rather have him in case he finishes 4th. I'll just take the minus 110. It's close enough for me. So I am going to join you on that. Reddick and Elliott kind of make similar cases. Byron at plus 155, I think is fun.
Very intriguing.
These are all great, sidecars to your outright market bets. If you think, especially guys like Chastain, Byron, Kyle Busch, if you think they can be really competitive and have a chance to win the race, adding a little extra so that way if they finish 3rd instead of 1st, you don't get completely left out in the cold. You can also spend some time going down a little bit farther where someone like a Ryan Blaney is plus 450, or you can find some value. But there is one bet that was pointed out on the betting preview show that I am all aboard, and it gives you much better value. So top 3 market, similar vibes. Like I said, plus 140. I'd rather have minus 110. I don't think it's that big of a jump for the difference. The other thing that if you want to think about this week is maybe you like a guy like a Christopher Buescher that you don't necessarily think is going to win, but can be near the front. AJ Allmendinger is in a very similar boat for me. But I feel like there's a lot of Michael McDowell, another guy that if you want to get a little spicy, like a top 3, a top 5 could make a lot more sense on them at pretty nice numbers.
Well, on that point, so that Truex 8-1 number,
yeah, that's pretty nice.
Much different than the Kyle Larson odds separation from 325 to a top 5 to plus 800 on a top 3 for 2 positions. Give me that quarter unit, like very small exposure, clearly from a like monetary perspective on a guy who has shown tremendous success at this track in the past.
Yeah, we're both betting him outright, so I'm going to join you on that. It's wild that we don't talk about this stuff before the show. We get on and like our brains just kind of, after doing this so long, I guess we get on the same wavelengths. That's why it's good to get some input from different people to kind of push us in different directions. Or
Needless to say, though, I mean, like after last week, I don't even know if I trust my own instincts on this.
Yeah, you really have to like get over last week and get on to this week because each week, each race is its own. But yeah, like we were on fire. We loaded up last week and things did not go well. So let's put it behind us. Let's get back. Overall, it's still been pretty solid, and let's see if we can find a few things. So a couple bets I did want to point out. Manufacturer Toyota to win at 3-1 obviously gives you Tyler Reddick. It gives you Martin Truex that Brian and I are both on. It gives you Christopher Bell. It gives you some interesting names that I think are legit contenders. And 3-1 to win this race, I think, is a good number. And it, in fact, is on my card for a little bit of a taste. The other bet that I was talking about that, if you want a little Ryan Blaney exposure this week, obviously you have to overcome Cindric, who at 4-1, I think is a fine price if you want to get a little exposure to him, but don't necessarily want to mess with like, is he 3, is he 5? I don't really know. But Ryan Blaney at plus 750 to be the top Ford is a really compelling bet. I think he could be 6th and still be the top Ford. I think there's a few paths to him doing this. Obviously, he could be 3rd and get it. But plus 750 when we were looking at what, 4-1 for him to top 5. I think it makes sense.
Yeah, again, from a pure speed perspective, Ryan Blaney's been the best Ford this season, and it's not particularly.
He's behind Michael
close.
McDowell. Like, what are we? I love Michael McDowell this week, but that doesn't make no sense.
No, it makes absolutely zero sense.
So, and Brian and I are definitely bettors who like numbers, and when numbers don't match up to what we think, it piques our interest. So.
Yeah, I'm definitely a numbers guy. Like I'm like a value better. I guess I'm like a shotgunner.
Some may call you a value hound. Oh. Top Chevy, Alex Bowman. Like, it's hard. Chevy's hard to bet top Chevy because these guys are probably going to be at least top 3, if not winning the race, if they're the top Chevy. So I would probably look to go there. But if you want to add a little bit of a supplemental bet, I think it makes a little bit of sense.
Well, okay. So on that point, just to hit on that real fast. So Kyle Larson, top Chevy number 3-1. If you like him to top 3, I feel like you're just better off betting the top Chevy number because then you're assuming he's finishing at worst 3rd, and that only leaves 2 spots for guys to potentially beat him, and that includes all of the Toyota guys that are really good here, the Blaneys, the Cindrics, the Allmendinger could beat him, but you know what I mean? Like it only leaves 2 spots for somebody
for
to
the Ford and the Toyota guys that we like. Yeah, no, I think that's a good call. Same with Chase. If you like Chase, I don't think he's going to have a strong week. He's one of the guys that can going to fade. It might look really dumb come Sunday afternoon. I worry about him getting back into the car. He hasn't had a road course all year. That car has not been the same. But we'll see.
Yeah.
That's why you always want to look kind of, okay, what makes the most sense? Do I think he can top 3? Yes. Do I get a better number if I come over here where he can still top 3? Sure. Back and forth, figure out, okay, what, because you want to maximize your bullets. Winning in NASCAR is hard. So if you're going to hit a bet, make sure you get the best number, make sure you're getting the best value, all that good stuff. So that is that little head-to-head preview. There's a few interesting ones. Cindric a decent favorite over Gibbs, but I think it's warranted. McDowell at plus money over Daniel Suarez is really interesting.
That is that said, Suarez has been really fast at road courses.
Yeah. I just think they're close enough where it doesn't make sense to get plus money over Suarez. But I see what you're saying. Truex over Harvick at plus 105, I think, is really interesting.
I'm hitting that.
Yeah, I think that's a good number. And if you're looking for a little extra Truex exposure, that's a great way to go.
Let's just say that it will be a very massive party with Marty if
I will have my Marty party jersey on for sure. Some interesting Reddick options here. You can obviously fade him against Chase. You can fade him against Larson, but once again, if you're doing that, it might make more sense to go top 3 or the win, because for him to do that, it probably is going to require a really, really good day. Blaney's a decent favorite over Logano. Are you going back to that well this week?
If I got a better number, I probably would.
Yeah, let's go see, because there is a few bets over at DraftKings that I'm want to point out. Bowman over Logano at minus 115. Bet we don't have bet 365, but that one is interesting. Is there any? Oh yeah. All right, we'll flip over there if we need to. Let's see here. So the first one I want to put on the card is Ross Chastain over Chase Elliott. I made it my favorite head-to-head on the betting preview show. I'm going to add it to my card here. Plus 125. Brian, we are the kings of taking that plus money head-to-heads.
Yep.
I feel scary to fade Chase Elliott, but I'm going to do it this week, and this is the first way I'm doing it. So Ross Chastain, welcome to the card, plus 125.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I'm just so worried about, what his mindset is coming into the race.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. I already added it. Dang. So I added this prior to recording. It has moved a little bit, but I took Kyle Larson over Tyler Reddick. I got it at plus 105, but even money is fine. Larson could run away and hide, and obviously, you betting him to win is probably a good way to get some exposure too. But I like that. I like plus money against a guy that, Reddick's been incredible at road courses, and obviously he's been really good this year. But I think it's a good number to jump on.
Yeah, I don't hate that. Actually, seeing that, it's just I have a hard time trying to fade Tyler Reddick with how good he's been on road courses of late.
Cindric minus 105 against the Dinger. I like that.
So that's my favorite matchup. Look, I know we call Dinger the ringer on road courses, and he's tremendous on them. He's, quite possibly a top 3, top 5 guy on road courses. But you know who's been better in all of the races that they've run together in the Cup Series? Austin Cindric.
And you know who's not running a colleague car this week?
Exactly. It's Cindric and Penske versus Dinger and Colleague. Cindric actually looked okay last week as well. He's running right outside the top 10 before him and Austin Dillon got into it, and then we go over to those shenanigans. And then, like I said, Cindric has actually finished ahead of Dinger in 5 of the last 7 road courses that they've run together here in the Cup Series. And then when you look back at their Xfinity races, if you take away the Charlotte Roval, they were about even on road courses in terms of their finishing positions. And most of the time, when Cindric finished behind Dinger, it was within 1 or 2 spots. Whereas when Cindric finished ahead of Dinger, it was a little more separation. So, clearly these guys are both extremely good on road courses. Cindric, like Dinger, was called up to run a third car before he was even a full-time Cup Series driver on road courses because of his prowess on these types of tracks. And you're getting close to even money on him in a much better car in Penske versus Colleague. Yes, please.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you. Okay. Should we, anything else you want to look at, or do you want to recap our cards, give the people a best bet, and then start the prep work for qualifying and practice?
Yeah, I think I'm good. Let's
do it. So, looking back to get on the gravy train this week, I have Ross over Chase Elliott at plus 125. I have Larson over Reddick at plus 105. I have a McDowell top 10. I have a Bubba top 10. I have a Truex top 10. I have a Ryan Blaney top 10 and an Alex Bowman top 10, all at plus money. Numbers that make a lot of sense. From an outright position, I have Martin Truex. I have William Byron, and that is it. I have the Blaney top 4 at plus 750. I have Toyota to win the race at 3-1. I like that. I added the Truex top 3 to add a little supplemental to my Truex outright.
It's actually 10-1 at Caesars, by the way. So,
oh baby, give it to me.
Yeah.
I am going to update that. Kyle Larson at minus 110 at Caesars to top 5, I think is a amazing bet. I have a couple that are bouncing around in terms of my best bet. So let's recap Brian's card. Brian will give you his best bet, and then I'll get the hell out of here. So 2 outrights, Truex 33, Blaney 35. Both of them trying to get a little CLV. We'll see how they unload. We'll see what qualifying looks like. Make some decisions beyond there. If we want to expand, add more units, whatever. Top 10s. He's got Bowman. He's got Truex. He's got Blaney. He's got Bubba. He has Dinger losing to Cindric at minus 105. He has Larson to top 5. He has Marty Party to top 3 at 10-1, which is a great shout. And then Truex over Harvick at plus money. Brian Twining, what is your best bet as we sit here Wednesday evening?
This was a late ad, but, getting plus money on this on a guy who I think has a legit shot to perform well, kind of go back to the past and how good he's been. And I'm wearing the freaking hat. Martin Truex Jr. over Kevin Harvick at plus 105 at Barstool or Bet Rivers, whichever book you can get it at. 2 units there. That's going to be my best bet before we see them on track come practice and qualifying. So please pray to the Lord that Martin Truex Jr. unloads fast.
Yeah, I was gonna join you on the Marty Party bandwagon, but since you left the door open for me, I'm gonna take the Kyle Larson top 5 at minus 110. I think he unloads well. I think he's on the pole, and I'm going to have some nice CLV on the number. Will he finish what he started? Who knows? But I feel pretty good about it. So give me the minus 110. I'll put 4 units on there to top 5. And we'll see how everything goes. If you are enjoying the show, make sure you smash that thumbs up. Make sure you hit the subscribe button if you have not done that yet. Let us know as we sit here now, who are you betting to win the race? Do you have an outright? If you don't have an outright, give us your favorite bet, top 10 matchup, whatever you find. I will also link to the betting preview show hosted by Derek Yoder, who does an amazing job. Twitter every single week. Make sure you're checking that out. It's also a podcast after the fact, plus all the other amazing content. We're trying to share it out. So at FPAOP, we're trying to tweet out other people's work because there is a lot of good information for both betting and DFS and just enjoying the sport of NASCAR. That is Brian Twining. I'm Kyle Robert. We're going to go enjoy the rest of our evening and get ready for the rest of the week. We will talk to you on Saturday. As always, we will record Saturday. It'll be in your feed probably Sunday morning because it's a late qualifying out here on the West Coast. Hit the subscribe button so you know when it hits your feed, and we'll talk to you next time.